Jordan, when you're going through a period like this where you have a lot of games, how does it change things? Like so many of them are at home. I think this is your sixth straight home game. You guys barely left the area for months, it seems.
Yeah, obviously I think that's a big advantage for us for a few reasons. Being at home with your family, having your same routine going into games, not having to get on an airplane to travel, all things that are good for your body. And then just playing at home in front of our fans is obviously a big advantage for us. So I think from the beginning of the year we've kind of turned moving back into a place that's really tough for teams to come in and play. And so having as many games at home for us is important, and that's been, I think, a reason for our success.
On the same token, how does it feel physically? Like, does it feel like you're in a period of playing a lot of games, or does your body not have the same wear and tear when you are not traveling the way you are?
I think both. I think definitely not as much wear and tear as if we were traveling every other game. But it definitely feels like you're in a period of congestion in terms of how much we're training and kind of how your maybe body feels on a day like today and the amount of recovery you need to be doing after games. So helps that we're not traveling as much, but you still, I think, feel that a bit.
For both you guys, obviously you've seen LAFC very recently. What do you need to do differently from that game a few weeks ago tomorrow at the game?
Do you want to take this one?
You're doing such a great job, sir.
All you.
Well, Jackson, the easy answer to that is just, play up to our potential. I mean, you're talking about playing at home. I think that is a distinct advantage. How that laid out, the record we had last year, the rankings and all that, that was part of our good work from last year. Jordan feels refreshed. He's got a newborn, new family. He feels great. It helps being at home. There's a lot of factors. Having said that, the last game we played against LAFC, we made a couple of mistakes, and that's a team that is going to punish you when you make those mistakes. And so the focus, the messaging was, we can play with them. 2-1, he gets that penalty call. Rothrock gets a penalty call. One of them gets a penalty call. It's 2-1. We're on top of them. It's a way different game. So, that'll lead into my next point. But you got to play mistake-free because 22 out of their 60-some-odd goals this season have been in transition moments. So the flip side of that is we have to score against them. We have to make them pay when they make a mistake because they're not perfect. And so, creating enough goal-scoring chances, I think we've done a great job here at home. I think we've, always been a good team in transition. With Jordan, obviously, our set pieces, we've been effective with those. Now we just need some of that combination play, a goal in the run of play to get us started. And let's see.
Brian, I wanted to ask just on the injury side, how Pedro is, and the other question I wanted to ask you, excuse me, is just kind of trying to read between the lines as far as Steph and Andrew go. If you're, the way I understand it is that you want to give Andrew, like Jackson, some playing minutes to kind of get up to that, just get some experience through this tournament.
Yep.
And does that stay now that you're getting further and further?
So De La Vega's an easy one. He's going to be on the bench. So he passed his last fitness test today, and I'm happy for the kid. Let's see how the game goes before we add expectations of playing time or not, but he's on the bench and available for selection if I so choose. As far as Andrew Thomas and Stephen Fry, I think I've been pretty honest with you guys. I didn't promise this tournament to either one of those two. Andrew has played tremendously well. Andrew is going to play in the Open Cup game. I've been on record there for the game tomorrow. Let's just see. Steph is still the number one. I mean, he's our number one guy. And this is a big game. But Andrew is gaining that big game experience. And we're confident, these guys are confident with either guy in the goal.
How is the conversation? Is that a necessary conversation?
It's a good question. How is the conversation with those two guys? It's really one of the easier conversations I've had, because both of those guys are team guys. Steph supports Andrew. Andrew supports Steph. Jacob Castro, you throw him in there. He's such a nice human being, good individual, good soccer player as well. I think our goalkeeping crew has always been a very tight-knit group. They all support each other. They understand that it's competition, but they're supportive of each other 100%.
Brian, you talked about this a little bit already, but you have been partial to possession so far, and LAFC are a team who loves playing transition. Is that something that you like in this game? It's not been something that's happened in the past couple of games.
That we've had less possession.
Yes.
I think those were, sometimes those games end up like that with less possession because you go ahead first. I mean, that's common sense. So you get in the lead, your opponent picks things up, you might play a little, more safe, conservative. I think some of that's human nature, ebbs and flows of the game. When do you keep your possessions? How do you extend your possessions? I think those are all critical factors. I think against LAFC, we're not going to change who we are. We're not going to shy away from the game just because it's LAFC and we haven't had a result against them in a while. We're going to play the same way we do. We're going to try and be effective. We're going to try and limit the mistakes. And we're also going to try and take a little bit of what Jordan alluded to is, some of that home field advantage. And when the game was kind of there against Pumas and these guys brought their energy and the physicality, not in a bad way, but you saw the reaction of our team, and then the crowd helped us, the atmosphere of that game helped us, and we kind of got in a good groove and we ended up winning the game. Same thing needs to happen against LAFC. We need to have those same little moments where we can somehow spark the team, or these guys are going to start off on the front foot as soon as the ref blows the whistle. But we need that energy and that physicality against LAFC.
We'll take a few questions here via Zoom and then come back to the room. Masvira, take it away.
Thanks. Hey, Brian, hey, Jordan. How important is that first 20 minutes? And I'd say 25, right? Because you said the first 0 to 10, there's a energy that comes. And then there's always kind of like a boxing match, right? Around the 20th, 25-minute mark, both teams. How important is it for your team to sustain that?
Well, sustaining it, there's ebbs and flows in each game, Maz. But if you can use your momentum and score early, that allows you to dictate some of the tempo of the game. So let's just say, for example, we talked about less possession. So if we can get up early on LAFC, they'll have to come a little bit more, which means they might have a little more possession. Maybe we want that. Maybe we do want to sit back and open up the legs for these guys in transition. We'll just see how the game goes.
Is it fair to say your team's been in this run of form plagued with some courageousness? And I mean both on offense and defense. Offense, they've been able to make those runs. Then on defense, it looks like your defenders have been, going in on tackles, not reckless, but, really kind of laying themselves out, and then, as you like to say, going to transition.
Let me give you a couple examples of physicality, Maz. So when Obed was playing against the Galaxy, I think he did a really good job, JP as well, some other guys against Ricky Pugh. He used his physicality to not let Ricky Pugh see the passes that he wanted to see. Jordan has a different type of physicality. He can run, he can go. Rothrock has physicality because he just keeps running. I mean, he runs and he runs again, and guys have to chase him. So that's the group. Each player has a different type, but I need them to be physical. I need them to make this a hard game for LAFC. And if we can do that, we'll give ourselves a good chance of winning.
Lastly, Jordan, execution, how important is that going to be?
Yeah, it's massive, obviously. I think if you look back at the last few games that we played against LAFC, you look at the playoff game, I had a good chance to put us up 1-0. You look at the first game of the season, we had a couple chances at the beginning. And I think the difference in these games is they've executed in those moments and we haven't. And then they get up on us and they're able to sit back and make it difficult for us to score and get back in the game. So I think it comes down to those moments. If we're able to execute on some of those, I think the games turn out differently than they have, because I know they're a really good team, but we've been in all these games, and I think if things had turned our way a little bit earlier in the games, then the results would have been different. So in this game, it's important to come out on the front foot, like Schmetzer said, but I think executing in those moments when we get our chances is kind of what's going to dictate and determine the game.
Thank you.
We have 4 more here in Zoom. We might have time for a follow-on in the room, but let's go now. Nico, please. Nico Moreno.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Brian, where is Raul Ruiz physically right now? How fit is he for this game? How have you seen him going into this one? And how closer are you to knowing, after these last couple of really good performances, how closer are you to knowing your best 11 for, your group?
Well, Raul's fine. He's been training hard, working hard. Knee injuries can be funny, but he looks good. And then final 11 is still a little bit up in the air. I mean, it's a little unorthodox for me to start a guy, a Seattle guy who's, made a good name for himself. But look, if he's effective, he's going to stay in the lineup. Pedro's got to come back healthy. There's other little bits in, conversations about other positions on the field, but we're getting closer. I would say, Nico, we're getting closer.
And lastly, for me, the biggest takeaway of the Pumas game was the collective defensive effort, especially to dominate and limit the wing play. How key is to bring some of that for a team like LAFC that uses so much of Buanga and Kike Oliveira?
Yeah, it's a little different because the way Pumas sat up, they kept Huerta wide and the other kid wide. And when they got into our half of the field, they tried to find those one-on-one situations. Buanga's strength is running from a deeper position. So it's hard for us to double team him, so that's going to be key number one. But yes, I totally agree with you, Nico. I think the energy from front to back in our defending was excellent. It was a team performance because Puma was a good team. That's a very good squad, and I was happy that we were able to get a shutout.
Thank you, Brian.
We have 3 more here in Zoom. We'll go with Josh.
Thank you for the time, guys. Brian, LAFC has traditionally been 4 at the back, but this year they've done some 3 at the back with a couple wing backs. Wondering, how does that influence the way you think about attacking them? And Jordan, does the defensive formation of LAFC matter for you much one way or the other?
We know, we've watched film. I think the tactics are sound. I think we have a good chance if we execute.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a little bit different playing against a 4 and against a 3 or 5, whatever you want to call it. They played us like that last game, and again, I think it came down to them scoring early, and then they were able to sit back in their 5 and made it really difficult for us to break down. I think if the game was switched, we were up 1-0, they would have to come out of their block a little bit and would give us more opportunities in transitions, things like that. So when a team sits in 5, it's definitely difficult to break down. But again, that comes down to us executing early and trying to score an early goal, and then hopefully they'll have to come out of that a little bit, and we'll have some joy in that sense.
Thanks. Brian, maybe just a little bit more on it, if you could. Does that matter for you, what they do, how they approach, and does it alter sort of how you view ways to really go after them?
No, it doesn't alter anything in the grand scheme of things. There are little nuances that we showed the guys, and we worked on things in training this week about where we want to, place our players on the field relevant to a back line of 5. So there are those little nuances. And again, we'll try and start off and make them change to us. And if that doesn't happen, then we'll have to make adjustments, and that's just part of our game.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
We'll take 2 more here in Zoom, and let's measure if we have time for follow-ons here in the room. Let's go with Justin now.
Hi, thank you for the time, both of you. I was wondering if I could get both of your opinions on just how this rivalry with LAFC has developed from that first ever match that they had in Seattle all the way through what now has been, a few knockout matches against each other into now obviously another big knockout match here tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're both, have been near the top of the Western Conference since they came into the league. So, to be an expansion team like that and to come in and to have like the sustained success that they've had is impressive. And the Sounders have been the same. So, obviously, when two kind of heavyweights of the Western Conference go against each other like that, it's always going to be a good battle. Like you mentioned, we've matched up in a lot of knockout games, and at the beginning we were getting the best of them, and now it's kind of switched a little bit. So we got to turn that back in our favor. I mean, we had 2019, 2020, we knocked them out of the playoffs. Last year they knocked us out of the playoffs. So hopefully we can get a bit of revenge tomorrow. But yeah, it's definitely turned into a rivalry because we both seem to always be obviously doing well and playing in these big games against each other. So they're always fun games though.
Let's take the last one here in Zoom for Jonathan.
Hey folks, I just wanted to ask about, although we don't know what role he'll play tomorrow night, LAFC have a new striker, of course, and an iconic player in Olivier Giroud. For both of you, if you may, just what do you anticipate from him, his introduction to the league, and the challenges that might pose the Sounders?
We've all been a fan of good soccer players around the world. I think he fits that bill. Obviously, it's a big signing for the league. Let's see how he comes in. Let's see how it works. I mean, his introduction against San Jose was a good one. It was a positive one. They obviously had a good game there. He's a tremendous player. And how they fit him in, let's see. I think Bogish has done a good job kind of as their false nine. I think Kai Kamara has turned back the clock of time, and he's had some effective minutes in there. So it's a very talented LAFC team. But again, something that, we all like to, see good players come into our league. But for this game, really it doesn't matter. We're going to try and go out there and get the best of him, whether he steps on the field for 90 minutes or whether he steps on the field for the last 20 or 30 minutes.